Welcome to the first episode of Fur Talk. I'm your host, Karen Wiley. Some people know me as Kay, some people know me as Katie, whichever is fine. I've had dogs my entire life. I have competed with dogs. I have trained dogs. In fact, I retired as a dog trainer of well over 20 years experience. I've had quite a few different breeds in my lifetime. Let's see if I can remember all the different breeds I've had. Let's see. I learned to walk holding on to a border collie by the name of Sugar. After that, I had a terrier mix. Let's see, a shepherd mix, mini dachshund, mini schnauzer, mini poodle. A lot of minis there in a row. A couple of rough collies, an Irish setter, Doberman pinscher, a Belgian Tervuren mix, a Wolf Akita mix, first of many Shelties, a Boxer mix, Chihuahua, and then quite a few Shelties in a row. And I'm sure I'm missing something in there. I know I am. Did I mention a Golden Retriever mix and a Cocker Spaniel mix? Sure, there's others in there as well. I can confidently say of the, as of right now, 205, if I'm not mistaken, that AKC recognizes, I have trained in some capacity at least 129 of those breeds. Some of those breeds I have not run across because they're rare breeds or new breeds, but I have run across quite a few different breeds. I was looking at the list, going through, okay, have I had this one in my class? Have I taught this one privately? That sort of thing. And I was surprised by how many of them I was able to count that, yeah, I've had those in my class. I've worked with those. I can probably name most of them. I know I can picture most of them. But the names of the breeds, those automatically pop up. Yeah, I've had this one this long ago. I had that one that long ago. I've had this one recently. I've had that one fairly recently, and so forth. So, yeah, at least 129. I might have missed one out in there somewhere. But while I can't claim that I am a dog expert, I am dog expert adjacent. I don't have a degree in dogs, but I've had a lifetime experience with dogs. And using that lifetime experience, I do have 3 books that I have written. They're short books. They're cheap books. They're on Amazon. You're welcome to look for them. If I remember, I'll put them down in the comments. That way, if it's something you want to check into, you're welcome to. If not, don't worry about it. We'll probably cover everything in those here at some point or another. But I was thinking, okay, what's the first thing that I want to talk about? And I know exactly the first thing that I want to talk about is the first thing that happens when you decide, I want a dog. And this is such a complex issue that if you get it right, it works. If you get it wrong, it goes horribly wrong. And we've all heard those horror stories. Some of us have lived those horror stories. So that's where I want to begin, at the beginning. I want a dog. Okay, there's a lot of different options out there. There's a lot of different breeds. There's a lot of different combinations of breeds. I've had mixes. I've had purebreds. I've had it across the board. There's a lot of different places you can get a dog. And we'll talk about those as we go along as well. Things like, I've had pound puppies. I've had side-of-the-road dogs that were dropped off and they just wandered up. I've had dogs that were given to me. I have a dog now that I was on a waiting list for over a year, had to pay big bucks for, and had to fly to the other side of the country to pick up. But he's also a very special breeding from a very special breeder for a very specific purpose. And he's also my best buddy. He's my best friend. He's actually laying at my feet right now. His name is Hank. He's a black and white Sheltie, also known as a bi-black Sheltie. He just heard me say his name and he's jumping on my lap. He was bred by a very wonderful lady in North Carolina to be a service dog. And he has been an excellent service dog. He's a diabetic alert dog. Yes, I have diabetes. And he's a diabetic alert dog. And he has saved my life more times than I can count. So he was worth every penny I paid for him. And just because you decide to pay for a dog does not make it one way or the other better or worse than going to a rescue, which I have done. It makes it no better or worse than picking up a dog on the side of the road or getting a dog from a pound or any of the other different ways that you can get a dog. Each one is different. Each one has its own set of conditions. And before you even think about where you're going to go, you need to think about what you're going to get. Over the course of these videos, we're going to discuss the different ways of acquiring the dogs. We're also going to discuss the different personalities of the different breeds because, quite honestly, if you were to go to a rescue right now and find a dog and bring it home, you would really need to understand what you're getting in order to understand why your dog behaves the way it does. I was speaking to a lady just the other day, and she got a dog from a rescue. The dog was cute. Cute picture. Puppy. Not a little puppy, but a little older puppy. I think it was like 5-6 months old. Right in the puppy phase. And we'll talk about the different phases as well. I mean, we have so much to talk about. Was in the middle of the teenage years, shall we call it. When we're getting into things, exploring the world, boundless energy, teething, the whole bit. And she couldn't understand why the dog kept tearing up the granddaughter's toys. Well, considering the dog is if I remember correctly, a pit shepherd mix. Anyone who knows dogs, a pit shepherd mix at 5 to 6 months old inside a house with a granddaughter's baby dolls. You tell me how that's going to go. So that's something you want to think about. You may find a wonderful rescue group, and that's great. You may find a wonderful breeder. That's great. But you need to understand the breed or the combination of breeds that go into the dog you're interested in before you realize whether or not it's a good fit for you. And before you even go so far as to look for a rescue group, you really need to understand what goes into the different breeds. You need to really sit down and be honest with yourself. What are you looking for? This is going to be a member of your family for, depending on how old the dog is, what health the dog is when you get it, and the breed of dogs, what their longevity is, as to how long you're going to have this in your family. Anywhere from 5 to almost 20 years is what you're looking at. And if you get a senior dog, you're going to have less time. But if you get a puppy of a small breed, for instance, a Chihuahua, or heck, even a Australian cattle dog, granted not a small breed, but they are known for their longevity. They're very hardy breed. You're looking 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 years. Our Chihuahua lived to 19 years old. I've heard of cattle dogs living well into their 20s. So you're looking at a long-term commitment. And once that dog gets into your house, you're going to fall in love with that dog. And you're not going to want to let it go. And if it's a bad fit, think about it this way. Not so much that it's a bad fit for you, but what if you're a bad fit for the dog? So what do I mean by that? Think about your lifestyle and what you're looking for. You're the kind of person who works hard all day in an office. You come home. You don't mind a short walk down the sidewalk for a ways and back, get some fresh air. Come in. You just want to fix yourself something to eat, a glass of wine, sit on the sofa and binge watch reality TV. That's fine. If that's what you enjoy, that's what you enjoy. Do it. But you don't need a border collie. You need something more like a Pekingese or a Cavalier, something along those lines. You are someone who maybe works in an office, but you come home and You have been still all day long. You are vibrating with energy. You really want to just put on some shorts and get out there and run for a while. Maybe something like a Vizsla might be in your future. So you want to see what is your lifestyle. Honestly, how much time do you have for this dog? How much energy are you able to, not just willing to, but able to put into this dog? What kind of training? Are you perfectly happy with a couch potato who's just a potato laying there for you to pet? Or do you want a dog with a quick mind and wants to learn something new all the time and gets bored easily? A dog that you're really wanting to do things with, a dog you want to teach tricks to. Do you want to just sit with your dog or just play with your dog in the backyard? Or do you like to compete? Do you want a dog who enjoys competing? Just give you a quick little tip here. My dog Hank, that I mentioned a few minutes ago, he's got an older brother. Same breeding, same mother, same father, just an earlier litter. Competes in agility on the national level. In fact, just went to Brazil competing not too long ago. Shelties are excellent athletes. You don't stop to think about little fuzzy dogs like that being excellent athletes. But if you want a little compact, fairly compact dog, and you don't mind a little bit of shedding and a little bit of barking, but very little drooling, if any, but who's also a bit of an athlete and loves kids, hey, look at Shelties. They don't get enough hype. But think seriously about, do you have small children? If you have small children, a lab may be a wonderful dog, but that tail is thick. And when they're happy, it goes 90 miles an hour, and that can knock over a toddler. Without being mean or vicious or anything, without even realizing they're doing it. They're just happy with the world. And that tail will knock them right on over. Think about things like that. Think about the ages and the sizes of the kids in the house, if there are any. The ones that come to visit. In fact, that makes me think of something. At the end of each of these videos, I'm going to pose a question. And I want you to comment down in the comments. I'm going to give you a scenario. And I'm going to say, if this is a scenario you were faced with, what breed of dog or breeds of dogs would you recommend for this situation and why? Give reasoning. Why would this particular breed or these particular breeds be good in this situation? What would you tell this person should they come to you? And let's see what different opinions are. Maybe we can find out a little bit something about breeds we may not have heard of or had experience with. But that will be coming up at the end, and so I'll make sure I get that on there, and I want to hear your opinions on it. And then the next one, I'll give you my opinion on who I would recommend and see if you agree with it. Now, another thing to consider is I'm about to turn 65 in just a few months, and I'm not able to handle a big rowdy dog like I could 5 years ago. So I'm already counting certain breeds out for any future dogs I may or may not get. So you need to think, is the person, their age, their health? Be honest with yourself. What is your age? What is your health? If you are 60, 70 years old, you're not going to want something that's super high energy, that's big and it's going to knock you down and possibly hurt you. If you want a high energy, great. Go for a smaller dog that if they jump on you, it's not going to matter that much. Go for a medium to smaller dog. Don't go for a large, extra large, or giant breed. And just because you go for a giant breed, remember, some giant breeds are actually excellent apartment dogs. Think about Great Danes. Great Danes are huge dogs. They were originally bred, and think about what dogs were bred to do. These dogs were bred to their size and their strength because they were used in battle in medieval times. And they were the dogs who would go up and knock knights off their horses. So you would think a big dog like that with that strength, they would be constantly moving, constantly running, need to have a huge amount of space. Believe it or not, they make excellent apartment dogs. Why is that? It's because they work on bursts of energy and then they rest. Bursts of energy and then they rest. Run them hard for 15, 20, 30 minutes and they're going to sleep the rest of the day. So you take them out for a good hard run first thing in the morning and then later on after you get home from work and they're good to go. They will sleep on that sofa all day long. And before you say anything about, oh, but they're so big, I can't walk them. One of my first jobs training, I worked at a place outside of Atlanta. And I had a young lady who came in with her 2 Great Danes. She was 16 years old. She weighed all of 100 pounds soaking wet. And she couldn't control these 2 Great Danes as far as walking goes. Sweet as could be, but they just wanted to walk all over the place in every direction and just drag her along, as you can imagine. They outweighed her. Each of them outweighed her big time. By the time she was done faithfully using the method I taught her to use, she was able to walk through a store with these 2 dogs on hair ribbons. She did it to prove to me that she was able to do it, but she put in the work. That's something that a lot of people don't realize. They go to, and this is something that trainers all across the board just, it's one of their biggest pet peeves, is you sign up for training class, you go to training class, and then you go to the next one, and then you go to the next one. But you don't put the work in during the week and you expect miraculous results and then get mad at the trainer because the dog is not doing what you signed up and paid all this money to do. If you sign up and want your dog to walk on a leash correctly and you don't use the methods during the week, then they're not going to learn to walk on the leash correctly. That's just how it is. So you have to put in the work, and I'm not talking long training sessions. No, that's not how it works. Long training sessions are not how it works. The dogs get bored, you get bored, the dogs get frustrated, you get frustrated, and it stops after the second or third time you try. The long training sessions are for the athletes that are in training, the ones that are getting ready to go compete in agility, who are getting ready to go compete in herding, that are getting ready to go and compete in dock diving. But even then, they rest in between. They take breaks. They stop. They recalibrate. Once you do a run through in agility, you're going to stop for a few minutes before you do it again. You're not going to be running over and over and over and over and over and over and over. No, that's not how it works. So for just regular, say, teaching to sit and down, one of the comparisons that I would use all the time, is I compare it to training during the commercials of your favorite TV show. Have a bag of treats there next to your seat, and a commercial comes on. While the commercial is on, do 2 or 3 sits, maybe a couple of downs, maybe you leave it. The commercial goes off, you stop. That's it. The next commercial, you may want to do it again, or maybe skip a commercial and then do it on the next set of commercials. That way you can get in several training sessions in while you're just sitting there watching TV. The same for if you're making coffee. You turn on your coffee machine, and while your coffee is brewing, whether it's a coffee pot, a K-cup, a kettle, whatever, while your coffee is making, do a few commands. It doesn't have to be long and drawn out. In fact, it's better if it's not long and drawn out. If you think you have to work hours and hours with a dog to get them to understand, no. It's simply opening up a line of communications. Picture yourself going to a country that does not speak a language that you know, whether it's your native language or an additional language you've learned. But they speak a language you have no clue of. You're trying to ask for something. Where's the bathroom? Where's the train? Where's the bus? That sort of thing. And you don't have Google Translator. So what do? Real simple. You find a common word and then build on it from there. Sometimes it's a name. Sometimes you point at something and you say your word for it. They get the idea and they say their word for it. That sort of thing. Same thing. Dogs do not speak human language. Doesn't matter which language it is. Dogs do not speak human language. So your first task is to teach your dog, first, what's their name, and second, what's the name of the task you're teaching them. And I'll go through how to do all of this. It's easy. And once you start making these connections yourself with the idea and your dog with what you're doing, it's going to be really easy. You would be amazed how easy it is to train a dog once you start doing simple steps. And they're not hard, they're not complicated, they're really easy steps. I tried to get my husband to teach his dog, and he also has a Sheltie. And I tried to get him to teach Autumn to do a leave it on her paw. And I walked him through how to do it, but being a man, sorry, no offense to any men who are listening, but being a man, listening to a wife, even though she knows what she's talking about, no, he would not do it my way. And of course, it didn't work. So what did I do? And never say a dog's too old to learn. Autumn was 5 at the time that I did this. In 3 simple commands, I had her laying down and had the paw out and the treat on her paw and her leaving it. I tried to get him to do it. I walked him through the steps because I wanted him to train his own dog, especially when Hank and I were out of the room and he could do it himself, so that she was focusing on him instead of focusing on me. It's because I did the steps, and you need to do the steps as well. Another common thing that I hear from people whenever I'm training is, my dog will listen to my husband, but my dog won't listen to me. In our house, it's the other way around, but hey, it is what it is. That's simply because men have a deeper voice. And for dogs, that deeper voice sounds more like a growl, which is more like a reprimand. For women, our voices, and mine used to be, I had to train mine down lower, but for women, our voices tend to be higher. And higher is the high, happy voice, which is the play voice. So we're going to play with mom, but listen to dad. Also, dad tends to put his foot down more than mom does. Mom tends to coddle and baby. What needs to happen is dad needs to walk out of the room, or mom needs to take the dog into another room or out to the backyard alone and work with the dog and be firm. And to be firm, you don't have to be mean. I'm not saying be mean to your dog. Not at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. Am I saying be mean to your dog? Being firm with your dog is completely different from being mean. Think about a kid coming in from school, kicking their shoes off at the front door and then taking off. And you tell the kid to go back and pick your shoes up and put them up. Or they drop their coat or their backpack. Go pick it up and put it up. Some moms will just give the look, and the kid will immediately turn around and go pick up whatever it was they dropped and put it up. And some moms will go, no, I'll just do it myself. It's not a big deal. But when dad gets home, dad sees it laying on the floor. Dad goes, pick it up. They do it immediately. Dad wasn't mean. Dad just simply put his foot down. Pick it up. The tone of his voice, the look on his face, it's the same thing. Dogs like boundaries, just like kids. Kids won't admit it, but they feel safer if they have boundaries. Same for dogs. Dogs like structure and boundaries. They like the fact that you're in charge so they can relax. Now, if you're not in charge, they feel like they have to be in charge. And sometimes they get hypervigilant about that being in charge. And they also start getting territorial about it. So you start running into more and more problems. Just be firm. If you tell him to sit, don't give him a treat if he didn't sit. Wait until he sits. And don't go sit, 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 sit. That's not how it works. He's going to, instead of understand sit means sit, he's going to think sit, 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 sit means sit. So, yes, I get off on tangents. I'm sorry. But I'm going to give you tons and tons of information one way or the other. But sit and be thinking about, you want a dog. What do I want? What's my lifestyle? What would fit into my lifestyle? And be honest about it. Make a list. What are the things you want out of your dog? Do you want a dog that's just going to cuddle up with you? Do you want a dog who's going to be active? You want a dog that does both? Do you want a dog that's easy to train, that you can teach things all the time? You've seen the videos and the TV shows with the dog on it that knows the names of 40 different toys and knows exactly what to do with it if you give a hand gesture or a single word. Toy box or bed or whatever. Or do you want a dog who just comes up to you, lays his head on your knee, and is just happy you're there and can care less about the rest of the world? It's your family member. This is someone who's going to be in your family. And yes, there are rescues out there who can help you with this, who can help you find exactly what you're looking for. There's also excellent breeders out there who would be more than happy to sit and talk to you about their breed for hours on end. And when you do talk to someone, don't just ask, what are the good things about this breed? Ask, what are the bad things about this breed? If you were to ask me about Shelties, which is what I've had for the past, oh gosh, we got our first Sheltie in the 80s, and I've had Shelties consistently nonstop since 2000. And what I'll tell you about Shelties is they're loyal. They're intelligent. They are very empathetic. They can focus in on their person, and it's almost like they can read your mind. They're wonderful with children. They are excellent with children. They don't drool. They're a good size. What's bad about them? They shed. Twice a year, if you take them to a good groomer, which if you're in East Texas, I can give you the names of a couple of really good groomers. But they need really good grooming every spring and fall. Spring, obvious, because of shedding season. But fall, you have fall shedding season, which anything that's still held on through the summer comes out in the fall when the new stuff comes in. They also are very barky. I've already had to pause this recording twice because of their barking. That's just a fact of life. But then, no serial killer or squirrel are going to come up into my yard without me knowing about it. That's for sure. They also are extremely intelligent, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a gift and a curse. You're constantly having to train with them, work with them, but they're easy to teach, so you're having to come up with things constantly to teach them. And they get bored easily, so you have to contend with that. But they're also easy to keep indoors. They're both actually in here with me right now, laying at my feet. Autumn was laying out on the front porch. Now she's in here laying at my feet alongside Hank. You would never know it. They were saying good morning to my neighbor a few minutes ago when I had to pause my recording and backtrack on it. But they're friendly at a distance. They will talk to my neighbor across the street all the time, and he'll talk back to them, and they're happy as can be. But put one of them on a leash, or even both of them on a leash, and walk them over to them, and suddenly they will back you up completely from 10 foot behind you. They want nothing to do with them up close, but they'll talk to them from a distance. I've had one Sheltie in my lifetime that would actually go up to people voluntarily, but he was a very unusual dog, and I miss him a great deal. He was my heart dog. His name was Hugs, and I still get choked up whenever I think about him. And every breed of dog is going to have positives and negatives. You're going to have some dogs who may not shed at all, but will slobber everywhere. You have some dogs that are highly neurotic. You have some dogs who are so laid back, they're almost comatose. You have some dogs who are so full of energy, they don't slow down for nothing until they flop over. For instance, Border Collies, they're workaholics. Border Collies are your most intelligent breed of dogs. They learn the fastest, they learn the most. They can learn in multiple languages at once and can differentiate them. I saw a demonstration with Border Collies many years ago, herding. And the gentleman who was directing them used whistles. And each dog had its own set of whistles. And he would whistle, and the dog on the left would go do this one thing. And he would do a different whistle, and the dog on the right would go do something completely different. And they all understood this. They knew each other's whistles. They knew which one was being whistled to and what to do when they heard it. It was amazing to watch. Ask anyone who owns a Border Collie or has a Border Collie somewhere in their life. You toss a tennis ball for a Border Collie. What happens? They bring it back. So you toss it for them again, and they bring it back. And you continue doing that because they keep bringing it back and they keep insisting. They will do that till they fall over dead. They won't stop when they're tired. They won't stop when they're hungry. They just keep going. There are ball launchers that you can buy at the pet supply stores. But then again, I also knew people when I lived in Georgia who would go to, there's a used sporting goods place in one of the towns there that if you had sporting equipment and your kid outgrows it or you decide not to use it anymore, you take it in, you sell it, and other people come in and buy used equipment because they know their kid's only going to use this for a year, or you know you're only going to be into playing tennis for a season or whatever. But quite a few of the people with tennis courts, both the apartments and the clubs and individuals even, that a lot of times they will bring in tennis ball launchers, the electric ones. And there was waiting lists for them. And a lot of times those waiting lists, it was for people with dogs. They would buy these used tennis ball launchers and they would train, especially border collies, but other breeds too, but especially border collies. They would chase the ball, get it, bring it back, put it in the little hopper with the other tennis balls, and by that point it would be set up for the next ball to launch, and they would do that for hours while mom and dad sat on the back porch with cocktails watching the dog chase balls and bring them back. Work for the dog, work for the owners. Hey, but keep in mind that border collie. That's why I personally, at this point in my life, cannot have a border collie. I am not active enough for a border collie. That border collie would be bored stiff with me, would go neurotic because I could not keep it busy enough. I know that. So I know if I ran across a border collie or border collie mix and I was looking for a dog, that would be a dog I would not consider. So keep in mind, what is your lifestyle? What were the dogs bred to do? The border collie was bred to herd hours and hours and hours on end. So they're workaholics. What was the dog bred to do? And what do you need the dog to do? And how can you make the two things meet? And don't say, oh, well, yeah, I don't run, but if I get this dog, it's going to encourage me to run. No, it's going to encourage the dog to be bored silly, because as soon as you start running, you're good, probably, if you haven't been doing it, you're going to get bored with it, or you're going to pull something, or something's going to happen, or you're going to get busy, and then all those good intentions go out the window. Well, I'm not saying you're not going to do it. I'm saying don't get the dog in order to encourage you to do it. Start with a dog that likes to be walked and start walking. And then if some point in the future you've graduated up to running and you want a running companion, then get a running companion. Don't get a dog in order to encourage you to run, because chances are that's not going to work. Just get a dog that likes to walk. And then if you run a little bit along your walk, the dog can trot along with you. And I'm going to have a whole thing about running and dogs and pavements and surfaces and heat and cold and paws and the whole bit. So that's coming up. So like I said, I've got tons and tons to talk about. So hopefully that gives you an idea of some of the things we're going to be talking about on this series. So here is my question, and give your comments down below and give your reasonings, because that will help other people to understand what you're getting at. Don't just list off breeds without saying why. If you run across a single mom and she's decided she wants to get a dog for her kids, and she has 2 boys or 2 girls, or a boy and a girl, but for this we're going to kind of go with 2 boys. I have a girl and 2 boys, and my 2 younger ones were the 2 boys. So after my daughter was grown and gone. So this is where the scenario comes in from. So you have 2 boys, they're say 8 and 10 years old. Just giving a generic middle of the road age there. One of the boys is athletic. He plays sports. He likes to play football and baseball, and he runs, and he's outdoors all the time, and riding bikes and that sort of thing. The other son, he loves to game. He likes to work on his computer. He likes to read. He likes to draw. He's more sedentary. You want a dog that's an easy keeper. A dog that's easy to train, but not a dog you have to constantly train. But you also want a dog who will be able to work its way into both of the kids' lives. You want a dog that can get out there and roughhouse with one boy, but can lay quietly with the other boy. You live in a apartment or a small house. You may have a small yard outside, but it's not really big. But there is a park or a playground nearby. Now, what breed or breeds of dogs would you recommend to this mother? Why? And if you don't have any in mind, but you have further questions, what questions would you ask the mother to help narrow down what you would actually recommend? Once we decide on a breed, then we'll talk about where you would get the breed. Where would you find that dog? So we're not talking about, oh, well, I would just go get any generic rescue dog because they all need love. No, we'll worry about where we get the dog from soon. Right now, we're going to worry about what type of dog, when we go to the rescue, when we go to the pound, when we go to a breeder, which dogs are we focusing on? So that's your question for this episode. Single mom, 2 boys. What dog would fit into both boys' lives and still be an easy keeper for mom, one that will learn its manners and not be crazy around the house? That's it for me today. Look forward to your responses down in the comments, and I'll see you next time.